Remember, this is not one of these, this is just us, enjoying a good meal, enjoying the fellowship, which I'm so glad to see you guys doing that. I probably should fill that up a little bit. I have something in this box. I have some cards, and I would like you to pull for Shannon, when she's not here, and hopefully she'll, be on her way. And I just want everybody to just take an envelope out of the box, and then I will, and you'll note that the envelopes are numbered, okay? And I'll tell you what that means after you take your number, okay?
Okay.
By the way, the water is good.
I'm a water fanatic. Oh, good. Okay, I'll make sure to put some. Yeah, come on now.
Then they can take that.
Oh, there's two. You take both of them and give one to
I'm like trying to fill around here. I got my favorite number.
Oh,
What number is that?
One. Number one. Hey, number one. So this is how we're gonna start, guys. Inside your envelope is a card, and inside the card is the name of one.
The name of what?
One of the participants. We'll start and go in numerical order, although it's all out of order. But whoever has number one is going to open up their envelope in a minute, open up the card, and reveal whose name is on the card. That is the person who will go first. And sharing their testimony.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, whoever has envelope number
I
one.
have envelope number one.
Where's Tige? Envelope number one.
Envelope number one. I'm so sorry, but I have to rip it.
Oh, go for it. Rip it open.
Okay. Beautiful butterflies, and it's Tige. I love it.
Now, I was wanting these to be kind of random.
Yeah.
I thought it might be good to put you first, just in case, so she wouldn't have to sit through. You know what I mean? Wouldn't have to sit through. I was thinking for you, girl.
Yeah.
And so, and if she gets active, just, we're family.
Yeah.
We're family, and she is, I'll let her tell you about that.
Okay.
She's got a story about her. All right. So, Missy, I'll sidle up beside you.
All right.
And whatever's on your heart, whatever it is you want to, and it's interactive, so you don't have to feel like, you can't stop in the middle of something and ask her a question. If there's something you want to know, if you find it interesting, stop or comment about it, give your opinion about it, so that it won't just be talking heads. Okay.
Well, so many testimonies, but I actually brought my testimony with me today in the flesh. Miss Ebony Jewel. And it's so interesting because I've worked a corporate background in insurance for 16, 17 years, and One day I was in my office. It was actually in 2008. I was sitting in my office, and I was around, I think, 37 years old at the time. I'd been married 10 years, I think at the time, 9 years at the time, and I was just like, you know what, I'm ready to have a child. But my husband was not ready. He's like, I'm not ready to have a child. My husband's an actor. And he's like, I'm just not where I want to be professionally at this moment to have children. It's a big responsibility. It's a big expense. And we just don't have the funding right now. And, you know, he's been saying that. We've been talking about it since I think we were married at 5 years. And then by the time we reached like 8, 9 years, I'm like, my patience is running out. My biological clock is ticking. So one day I was sitting in my office, so I back up. One day I was sitting in my office, and I didn't want to be there. I was so tired of the corporate lifestyle. You know, I wasn't tired of the money, but I was tired of getting up, doing the 9 to 5, all of that stuff. And I had just decided I was going to pick a fight. I was just in that kind of mood that day. And I was with Antonio, and you know that was going to be a good fight.
You don't know. Some of you do know.
When you make a fight with Antonio, you got to bring it, okay? Right? That's all I was saying.
Right.
But I was ready to pick a fight, and I just mustered up all of these emotions about ready to have a child. It's my body, and we're waiting, and I'm tired, and da-da-da-da. So after I got myself good and angry, I picked up the phone, and as soon as I picked up the phone, I heard the voice of God say, are you going to handle it, or are you going to let me handle it? And I literally started shaking, and I shared this story with Antonio. He knows. I started shaking, and I hung up the phone, and I just cried. Like, all that anger just broke out in tears, and I was just like, I'm going to let you handle it. I had my power. Thank God for officers. So I just had my powwow with God about wanting to have children, and I'm like, and not even knowing if I could, because I had suffered with fibroids and had, you know, fibroids removed in 2001. Doctor told me my uterus was tilted, so it was upside down. So I didn't know. I mean, the doctor said I could have a child, but it would be difficult. And I'm thinking, well, I'm adding an older age on top of it. You know, 37 at the time. 37 or 38. But anyway, so fast forward 2 years later in 2010, I'm thinking all this time, oh my God, you got an interesting way of handling this thing. You know, years have passed by. 2008, now we're in 2010, and there's still no baby, no mention of a baby, blah, blah, blah. We're just living and doing our thing. One day I was sitting at the computer, and my husband walked up to me, and he said, you know, Tige, I've been thinking and I've been praying, and he said, we've been living by faith all of this time. And he said, and I think it's time for us to have a child. He said, it's in God's hand. He said, we might as well continue to live by faith. And I just started crying. And I got up and I went to the bathroom, and he's like, I don't know why you're crying. We still can't afford to have no baby. So I just left it at that. I didn't even explain to him. So maybe a week later, he said, you know, I told you that I think it's time for us to have a child. And he said, and you didn't say anything other than crying. He was like, how do you feel about it? And I said, Antonio, I didn't say anything because a couple of years prior, I was sitting in my office and I told him that same story about I was ready to pick up the phone and go into this fight with him. And he was just like, okay, wow. So come 2011, I talked to my prayer partner. Sharon's my prayer partner. Andy's my prayer partner. And Antonio and I had the discussion, but I didn't want to share it with anybody because I'm like, just in case God decides that He won't let it happen, I don't want to put myself out there. And then I started to feel convicted about that. It's like either you're going to trust God or you're not. You need to make up your mind. And so I shared it with my prayer partners. I said, you know, guys, I'm believing God for a baby. And this was all in 2010. I'm believing God for a baby. And they were all excited. What? And we began to pray every week, every Monday. We were on the phone during prayer time. And so we put it on our prayer list. And it was in November of 2011. My organization, we have a big film festival every year in October. So in October of 2011, we had a big film festival, and I'm just busy. After the film festival, I'm exhausted for like weeks. And I'm like, I cannot get my energy back. And usually I bounce back. And so I was on the phone with Andy, and Andy said, sis, maybe you should take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, I am not taking a pregnancy test, because, you know, I've been taking over the years just in case, like, an accident happened. And I'm like, they're always negative. I'm not taking a pregnancy test. Blah, 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 blah. She said, sis, she said, you usually bounce back. You're so tired all the time. Take the test. So I said, you know what, I will go and I will get a test and I'll let you know. So I was out and about that day, and I ran into Big Lot. And I had an attitude about it. And I was like, you know what, Big Lot, you got a little cheap pregnancy test? And they did. They had like a little test for 79 cents.
He makes those.
They do. And the marketing thing, they get you to pay the third. Let me tell you, they got both for me. Now, I bought the 79 cents. They did. I bought the 79 cents. Now, at the time, I started grad school in 2011. I started grad school in August of 2011. So, November of 2011, I go right before class. I get this test. I go home. I'm doing stuff. I'm like, let me just take this test. Took the test, and it was positive. And I started shaking like a limb on a tree. Now, Antonio was not home. So I picked up the phone. I'm still shaking. I didn't want to tell him over the phone. And I'm like, I'm getting ready to go to class. Are you going to be home before I go to class? And he's like, nah, I probably won't get there until 6 o'clock. So I'll see you when we get home. So I'm like, okay, bye. So I hang up the phone. I go to class. I have 2 classes that night, but I can only endure 1 class. And I'm just like over the edge, excited. So I leave class after the first class. I go to the store, I'm like, I'm getting a real pregnancy test. So he got that $13
I better make sure. They get the whole size, right?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
You got the platinum one.
I made that. The business.
I $13.99 ABC test from CVS, and I get home, and Antonio's lying on the sofa, so I just drop everything at the door. I sit on the arm of the love seat, and I said, Antonio, I took a pregnancy test, and I was like, and it was positive. And he leaps up off the sofa, and he's like, I'm gonna go get another test. I'm gonna get one from the 99 cent store. No! I said, I stopped and I got a test. I was like, I got an EPT test. And he was like, yeah, but I still want to get one from the 99 cent. Like, he didn't know what to do. I think we were both just so excited. It's like we just besides ourselves. So I go into the bathroom and I take the EPT test, and at the end of the day, and it looked positive, but I honestly could not tell. It was like the line was like a plus, and then I was like, but I could kind of see the minus, and I was like, oh God. So he's gone to the store, and he came back, and I was like, I'm like, it looked positive, but I'm not sure. And he's like, well, here's the one from the 99 cent store. I said, no more tests today. I can't do it. My emotions are way too high, so I said, I'll wait until tomorrow morning to take, the test that you just bought. And sure thing, I got up in the morning, took the test. It was a strong positive. So I decided to go to Tige, because that was my coverage at the time, to the nurse's station. And sure enough, I went to the nurse's station. I had Andy on the phone. I'm like, look, Andy, let me just tell you this. Because I didn't call her that day that I really found out. So I said, this is what's going on. She's screaming in the background. And I'm like, okay, and I said, and I was like, but Andy, I'm at Kaiser right now. I just took the test. I'm waiting for them to call me back. And she's like, call me as soon as you know, as soon as you know. Well, call Antonio first, but then call me back as soon as you know. And I said, okay. So the nurse called me back, and I go into the little room, and she's like, congratulations, you're pregnant. I froze all over again. And she says to me, she said, well, if you don't want to keep the baby. And I was like, what? I'm just like, excuse me. She said, well, I'm sorry, you just went into, I said, ma'am, I'm 40 years old, and I'm like, so I'm in shock. I'm so excited. And she's like, well, congratulations. And she gave me the package, and that was just the journey, and I was just like overwhelmed by God's faithfulness during that process. And within my 12 weeks of pregnancy, they sent me to the genetics counselor, and started having tests where they measure the spine, and they said that the test was positive that I would have a baby with Down syndrome. And I was just like, whoa. So I said, okay. So I told Antonio, I said, what do? He said, we don't do nothing. We have a baby. We have a baby with Down. And I was just like, I just didn't know what to do. So the doctor said, well, now we're going to send you for blood tests. He was like, if the blood tests come back positive, the chances have increased. You're probably at a 95 percentile that the baby will have Down. So I did the blood test, and of course the blood test came back positive, and they said that I would have a baby with Down. And of course I took it hard, and the genetics counselor was like, come in, let's talk some more. And I said, you know what, no, you're really taking the fun out of pregnancy for me. And I guess because it was initial shock, not that there's a problem with having a baby with Down, but your first child, you just believe in healthy, bouncy baby. And I'm like, you know, I wasn't ready for that news. And Antonio was like, Tige, let's pray. He said, if she comes and it has Down, it's going to be the smartest baby Down syndrome that I have ever met. And it was so encouraging because he covered me. And you know, and I've always felt like I was a super spiritual one, you know, faith. And he just covered me in such a way during that entire process. And I just let it go. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my prayer partner that the doctor said this. So I said, you know what, that's fine. Finally, I broke down and I told my mom, my grandmother, and I said, you know what, it is what it is. We're just going to believe God for a different outcome. And throughout the process, they were preparing for a baby with Down when I went in to have my surgery, and I kind of put it in the back of my mind. Antonio was out in the lobby videotaping himself waiting to come into the surgery room because I had a C-section because I was still dealing with fibroids and all of that during the entire process. I was hospitalized within 6 months. I stayed in the hospital for several weeks. So all sorts of complications started to sit in, but we just continued to trust God. Antonio was in the lobby and he was doing these little video clips of himself. And he said, you know what? He said, today is the day. He said, I prayed. I've been praying. He said, it's in God's hands now. And every time I look at that clip, I just get weak. So fast forward to the surgery room. We're in there having the baby, and I'm just drugged all the way up. And they pull the baby out, they put the baby in the little incubator, and they're working on the baby, and they're talking, and they're like, she doesn't have Down. And they're like, the doctor's like, well, maybe it'll set in a little. He's like, the baby doesn't have Down. So they're rolling her to the ICU because she had extra fluid on her lungs. And as they're rolling, now this story is told to me at this point because I was out. They intubated me and they did surgery on me to remove fibroids because I had fibroids everywhere. So they took one out so they couldn't close me up because of the fibroid. It was so big and in the way. So as they were rolling the baby out, Tony was with them. They got my mom out of the lobby, and the doctor was like, "Oh my God, you guys are one of the lucky ones." And my mother, "We're not lucky. We just know Jesus." Right? And so that is the journey of the testimony of me giving child to my first baby at the age of 40, knocking at 41. She was born June 6th, and my birthday is June 18th, so I turned 41 on June 18th. And she is as beautiful and as healthy and as smart. And I mean, she's 1 year and 7 months, and she pretty much, she spells her name. Oh my God. Smart. She's a brilliant. Everything opposite of what the doctor said. Only God. Only God. Only God. And that's just like I said, that's just one testimony out of so many. Tell us about that. The Down. No, I didn't know. I know, but I was. But you didn't want to tell us. But I just didn't. You didn't want to put it out there. Like, you know what? Sometimes, like David said, I need to encourage myself in the Lord. Sometimes you want to be able to stand. You have to be able to stand and trust God for yourself. And it's like a lot of times we depend on the prayers of other people and the saints. It's like, oh, God answered that prayer. No, God, I need to know you're going to answer this prayer for me. That's right. I need to know that you heard me. And we stood together and we believed God as a family. And it's just like, lucky him. He started walking at 9 months, the end of 9 months. She's a man. And I've been running every since. So I'm just so grateful because he is so faithful. And the beauty of it is, it's not because of anything he's done. It's not because I'm so faithful or I'm so committed. It's just, he's just faithful. So that's just one of many, many, many testimonies. that I brought my bundle of joy here
Yes,
today.
you can hear her in the background.
Yes, and you will probably see her.
She will be back, she will be back. Chante, I noticed that you were touched by that. What was, how does that minister to you?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. I think what really stood out to me was I choose to trust God. And I think, you know, when your emotions and your everything, it's just like, and about to drive you to do something potentially crazy, you're like, I mean, I don't know what could have happened, but maybe an explosion, a fight, and God comes and calms you down and tells you, this is what I'm going to do. And then you have to say, am I going to trust God, or am I going to do what I think I should do and to stand back? And for 2 years, that's a long time. It just reminds me of like my own testimony to God being like, this woman was like, I don't know, Lord, I don't know. But I feel encouraged, and I wonder, a question I had for you was, when you were praying those 7-8 months, what were you praying exactly? Were you praying for a healthy child? Were you praying for God's will? What were you praying?
We were praying for a healthy child, but we were also praying, God, let your will be done. Help us to align ourselves with your will. Our desire is for a healthy child, but ultimately we surrender our desire unto your will so that your will be done. And that's pretty much what we pray, but we never stop believing God and praying for a healthy child. So that's what we want to do.
Okay, well, that's a perfect introduction. Perfect introduction.